Okay, we are live. Good evening, everyone. My name is Seisha. I'm the social media manager here at Charis Books and at Charis Circle. And tonight we're so excited to welcome Madison Anne for a gender inclusive bra fitting workshop. This workshop is for people of all genders to break down all the things you never knew to ask about bras and sizing and fit. Madison Anne, aka TikTok's bra lady, is an ATL bra fitter and lingerie educator with over a decade of fitting experience. She has fit thousands of bodies of all sizes, ages, and genders, and uses this experience to break down the social stigma surrounding bras and breasts. If at any time, if you're online, you would like to learn more about Madison Ann's services, you can click on that teal button right below her. And if you're in person, we'll hear tons about it, and you can ask her afterwards as well. If you have any questions anytime during the workshop and you're online, feel free to type it into the chat. I will voice it during the Q&A. If you're online, just keep it in your head until you're told to do so. But I'll pass the mic around when we get there. Yeah, for now, I will pass it on to Madison Anne to get us started.
Amazing. Well, like I said, thank you all so much for coming out tonight. That's kind of my little spiel. That's a little bit about me. I have been a bra fitter since I was 18, so a little over a decade now. Multiple different capacities at different stores, at different brands. For the last year, I have been doing virtual bra fitting. So that's allowed me to offer these services anywhere in the world to anybody that needs it. So let's get into it. So this is again just a little bit about me. I started creating content on TikTok in 2020, like so many others did, and it really started resonating with people. People were a little bit confused about our bodies changing, our needs changing, and how to kind of understand what exactly goes into bra fitting and how to do it ourselves. When fitting rooms were closed, when people were not measuring, it's a little harder to understand again exactly what I need to. And I'll move around as necessary. I know it's a little bit of an awkward angle. So I was at a store from I guess 2015 to 2020, and then I was at another store from 2022 to 2025. And like I said, for this year, I have been offering my own services since then. So let's learn a little bit about you guys. So raise your hand if you like your bra. Oh, okay, yeah, sure. Who here feels like your bra is physically comfortable like throughout the entire day? Again, kind of so. Yeah, that's sure. Yeah, so that is the caveat. Who here thinks they're in the correct bra size? Okay, cool. Yeah, that's a kind of common answer. You probably wouldn't be here if you were like, I know everything about bras. And then who knows the best ways to check if your bra is fitting you correctly? Again, kind of more or less. Yeah. Well, we're going to get into all of these things. So, what are some of your biggest issues with your bras? You can just kind of shout them out. Anything in particular? Okay, absolutely. Sensory sensitivities with lace and different materials and just overall like the feeling of the bra. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just discomfort overall. Anyone get like wires poking? Yeah, straps falling down. Very, very common things. Again, y'all probably would not be here if these were not the norm. So we're going to talk about again all of these things today and how to go over that. Sorry, this is on a music stand. Okay, great. We're not going to talk about all of these terms, but we are going to talk about a couple of them, which may be some that you are not fully aware of. So there's a couple different parts of a bra. We have the band, which is the part that goes around your body that you clip on, and then you have the cup, two primary pieces. There's a couple other things. One is called the apex, here, which is where the strap meets the cup, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're also going to talk about the center part, which is called the gore. I don't know why it's called the gore, but it just is. If you say it's the little gizmo in the front, I'll know what you're talking about. But we're going to talk about how a couple pieces of the bra go into identifying if the fit is correct or not. So we're going to kind of get right into it. We're going to go over how bra. When we are checking the fit of a bra, whether that is you, whether that is me as a fitter, we are checking 5 kind of major things about the bra. One is the cups. So that is one of the kind of 2 primary parts, and how your breast tissue is sitting inside of the cups. So you can see in this top photo and the bottom photo that I am kind of spilling out of these cups. If I were to lean forward, my breast tissue would probably fall out of the center of these cups. I'm probably like getting spillage out the front. Maybe I get that quad boob when I am got a shirt on, and that's just not comfortable. Usually a sign that the cup is too small and it does not physically encapsulate all of our tissue. That goes hand in hand with wires if you're wearing a wired bra. Wires should not be uncomfortable, which is a kind of a revolutionary thing to say sometimes. But if your wire is sitting in the right place on your body and the cup is deep enough, you should not experience poking. You should not experience, skin breaking or bruising. That's typically a sign, again, that there's not enough room overall. So you can see in this photo just kind of where it's sitting on me and how we'll again kind of compare that with a couple other ones. Those are two things. Next thing we'll check is the band. Again, that is the part that goes all the way around your body. You might have the hook and eyes in the back, but it's going to be what is around you. If that's feeling too tight, maybe it is again causing bruising. It is causing marks that is not going away. Maybe you can't even physically fit your fingers underneath it when it's on your body. Not what we want. Then we have the straps. Straps are a little bit, we'll kind of talk about them. But if maybe, again, you're feeling that pressure on your shoulders, if just overall there's a feeling of constriction, of discomfort, not what we are after with a bra. And then the gore, like I said, we were going to bring that up, that middle part. Ideally, in a well-fitting bra, we want that to tack to your skin. That is the term that we use, just basically meaning it's touching the sternum. So if it is floating off of you, if it's maybe poking into your breast tissue, usually a sign again of something being too small, not having enough room. So you can see again here, I'm able to like fit my fingers underneath it, not what we are after. All right. So those are a couple of things about too small. A couple things can be too big as well. And sometimes a lot of these things go hand in hand. The cups, we'll look at those again. If there's just an excessive amount of room in the cups, maybe again, I'm able to fit my hand like completely underneath the tops of the cup. If I lean forward, I'm moving inside of the cup. I'm not being held in. Usually a sign something is a little bit off there. Goes hand in hand again. I know you're not in the best spot. You're good. With the wire placement. So maybe sometimes, we're human. We sit and we slouch and we go about our day, but maybe sometimes you start to feel your wires sitting on your stomach. And that's not where we want them to sit, because that's, I know, yep, just trying to lift them up and everything. And so maybe they're sitting there and they're not sitting underneath. And then maybe conversely, if you lift your hands up, they float away from your body and your boobs fall out of the bottom of the cup. Not what we want. Overall, what we're looking for with the bra is this feeling of security. So if we're feeling anything like this, we're not probably feeling very secure. The band, again, usually what I see as a fitter is people being in too big of a band and too small of a cup. But the band, ideally, we only want to be able to pull it away from your body about 1 or 2 inches. Everybody's needs and comfort level there is a little bit different. But if you're able to take, like I'm doing in this photo, if you're able to take the band and go wee really far off of your body, it's not doing what we want it to. And then the gore, you might see a floating gore with something that's a little bit too big as well, because it's just overall not sitting flush. It's not being pulled back the way we want to. With straps, there's a couple things that can indicate something's a little too big with the straps. Maybe you don't feel that support, so you are, again, hiking up your bra strap a lot, causing the pressure there. Or maybe you feel like you cannot get your straps to stay on your shoulder. Usually a big sign, something is a little bit off. Now we'll talk about the well-fitting bra. And how I like to liken a well-fitting bra is I like to liken it to a scale. We're looking for balance. We're looking for a band and a kind of the rest of the bra that is going to be secure enough, that is going to stay lifted and supportive throughout the day while making sure your cups don't move on you, while making sure that your gore doesn't come away, while making sure that your straps don't fall down, while making sure that you're not experiencing excessive gaping. So how do we check if that's what we're getting? So we'll look at the cups again. So it's a little dark. I know I should retake the pictures. Comparatively to those small cups, especially, we have a lot more room in these cups. The wire, which is the second one, I know you can't quite see, but it's about right here compared to where it was on the smaller one, which was about right here. If I were to lean forward in this bra, if I were to, just lift my arms or go about my day, my breast tissue would stay inside of the cups. That's the biggest thing that we are looking for. And then the rest of the bra, again, is helping with that balance and everything. The band, like we mentioned, we don't want to pull more than like 2 or 3 inches away. Hold on, is everything okay? No. Is that the second time that happened tonight? That's so crazy. Who's ordering food to Charis Books or Charis Books? It's okay. I'll take it. So, like I said with the band, we only really want to be able to pull it away no more than about 2 inches. Again, people's comfort level there is a little bit different, but what that's going to do is that make sure that there is just the right amount of tension in the back to keep everything in the front supported. That's what that's going to ensure. If you feel your band kind of creeping up your back throughout the day, or it's making like a U, usually a sign it's not doing exactly what it should and we're losing that balance. The straps in a well-fitting bra, hopefully the straps are almost like superfluous. The band and the cup should be doing everything to stay in place. The straps are there just to keep the cup up, not to necessarily give a lot of support to your breast. Kind of crazy to think about, I know, but we're hoping just to see that to help maintain the structure of the bra and less about getting that pressure on your shoulders where it is going to like cause discomfort there. And then the gore, we want to see that the word again is tack, touch, whatever you want to call it, because we now have enough depth in the cups and we have enough room overall in the bra where that's just going to sit nicely to your skin and hopefully not cause any discomfort there. So here are the pictures again. Amazing. Anyone have any like preliminary questions about these couple of things? Okay, amazing. We'll have more time for questions later. So let's kind of look at this in practice. So we have over here, we have this woman who is in the brown bra that we started in a 38 triple D, kind of the end size range that we see from places sometimes like Stoma or Victoria's Secret. That's usually the end cap that we find. So she got what she could with the biggest size. Like I said, this is kind of the most common one that I tend to see from clients is usually too big of a band and too big of a cup because we're trying to make sure everything is staying inside. Then we were able to get her into a 36I. So we have given her a lot more room in the cup and given her a tighter band, and you can really see the difference in where that is sitting on her body and how much is being lifted overall. Then we have another one. This is just an XL wireless. Compare that to this one, which is a 36H. Big difference in the lift and the shape of that one. We'll talk about wireless bras a little bit more, but big difference overall just in making sure everything is feeling supported. This one's a little bit more subtle. We had a 38C on this side and a 36 double D on this side. You can see a little bit with this shadow, that kind of gaping that we sometimes get. So we've brought that down a little bit, brought it more close and flush to her skin, and now everything is fitting the way that it should. So like I said, that's a little bit of that in practice. So now you're trying to maybe figure out, okay, maybe you resonated with a couple of these things. How do you find your bra size? So I, as a fitter, am always going to tell you that the best way to do it is to get another set of eyes on you, to go to a fitter who is not necessarily going to be somebody from Victoria's Secret or Soma, that sorts of things. There is nothing inherently wrong with a Victoria's Secret bra, but the people at these stores tend to have a vested interest in selling you the bras they carry. So independent fitters are going to be a little bit better at that, and then might be a little more straight with you about your options. But there are other ways that you yourself can have a little bit more agency in understanding the sizing and what we might be looking for. One easy thing to do is to just kind of take your measurements. This measurements with any other kind of clothing is maybe not the end all be all, but for a lot of people, this gives you a really good starting range if you're looking for a new bra. So easiest thing to do is I had it in my pocket. There we go. So you all have a tape measure now. So you have at least one. It is very easy to just do this little method of finding your band size and then your cup size. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take that tape measure. We're going to wrap it around here, which is typically where we want the band to sit. You see it's going to be like horizontal, parallel to the floor, mirroring how we want that band to fit on you in general. You're going to take this little measurement. I say snug like a hug. If it's so loose that it starts to kind of drip down your body, a little too loose, but don't feel like you have to be Keira Knightley in Pirates of the Caribbean and like cinch yourself. That's not what we're after. We just want something that's going to be comfortable that you don't feel constricted with. For me, that measurement comes to about 34 inches. So keep that in mind. If you tend to come to an odd number, you can go either up or down depending on what your comfort level is. But band sizes are always going to be even numbers. But this number is just going to tell you what your band size is for the most part. So if you're maybe like, oh, I've been wearing 42 bands, and now you go home and you measure and you're like, I actually measured a 34 inches around, might be an indicator of maybe where some of the issues come from. So that is the first one. The next thing that we do is to find the cup size. What we're looking to understand is the amount of volume that we need to encapsulate in the cup. That's what a cup size is really it's just how much volume needs to sit in here. To take that measurement, you're going to wrap it around the fullest parts of your breast. You can do this in a non-wired bra. You can do this in a tank top. No bra is probably best. If you are like, oh, but Madison, my boobs are kind of like down here. That's fine. You want to then lean forward and wrap it around so that you can get another idea again of how everything is going to sit inside of the cup. With that measurement, you typically just want to go up to the closest round number. It doesn't matter if it's odd or even, you just need to remember that number. And then there's just a little bit of math involved. I'm so sorry, but we are going to take that bust measurement and we're going to subtract the band measurement from it. So again, for me, I mentioned I had the 34 band. Let's say my bust comes to about 41 inches. For me, that's going to give me about 7 inches of difference. So this is how bra cup sizing works, is that every inch of difference between your band and your bust is equal to a cup size. So 1 inch of difference is an A, 2 inches is a B, 5 is a double D or an E, so on and so forth. Yes, these bra sizes exist. The LMNOP, the J, we go past the triple D, we go past the G. And honestly, like I said, so many more people are over the double D cup than they think they are, because what is available is not necessarily conducive to what our measurements actually are. So, like I said, this can give you kind of a really good ballpark, again, a little bit more agency and understanding what maybe has gone wrong in the past, then gives you an idea of if you want to try something new, what might be a good place to start with. Any questions about measurements or just kind of that in general? Great. Okay. Yes. Sure. And we can kind of talk there. Like I said, it's kind of like a ballpark. If I put my measurements into like, and it kind of depends on the brand as well. If I put my measurements into Skims, it tries to tell me I'm a 38C. So like, you always want to check out the size ranges or the size charts of brands. We'll talk a little bit about kind of brands that, like, you know, we can kind of chat about that too. But really the biggest thing is, again, with kind of any clothing size, it's not necessarily about the size that maybe you measure to, or it's going to be what is going to fit you. If I walk into a Victoria's Secret and a 30 and a 36 triple D fits me in the way that we kind of came out to, sure, you know, I have shoes in my closet that range from 7.5s to 9.5s. But if there's kind of a way we can kind of chat about that if we need to, that you can identify, like, okay, I measure to an H cup. Maybe this H cup is too big. There is no harm in just trying, you know, smaller cups and like that, because like I said, this is a starting point. So you wouldn't be the first, you're not the last if this is not exactly your size. Perfect. Okay. Oh, yes. Yes. It honestly is going to be kind of your personal preference. It might even depend like on the bra itself. If you are somebody who you really do not like feeling, you know, a tightness around you, you can go up to the tighter or the looser one. I sometimes nowadays measure to like a 33. It depends on the day if I want to wear a 32 or a 34. Our bodies change every day. Isn't that fun? But if you are feeling like, you know, if you want to try it a little tighter and see if that is more comfortable, like getting you kind of like below that odd number, you can, and if that's comfortable, you can go down. So again, it's personal preference there. Yeah. Okay. So In addition to bra size or breast sizing, there's also breast types and there's bra types as well. In my opinion, the size is obviously a big thing to get right, but two people could come into a store and have the exact same measurements and completely different breasts and completely different bras that are going to suit each other's needs. So we're going to talk a little bit about that because, like we kind of mentioned, there's a big kind of stigma around what bras and boobs are supposed to look like, and it's not necessarily the most common knowledge that a lot of other breast and bra types exist, and how maybe those can be a little bit more compatible, because sometimes we can have things be the right size but not the right fit for us, in the same way that maybe I don't want to go out and wear wide-legged jeans. I'm not, that's not for me. Same kind of with bras. So let's talk a little bit about a couple different types of bras that exist, and I have some up here. Maybe we can pass them around. So everyone I think is mostly familiar with a t-shirt bra, right? That kind of molded, smooth shape. It's at Aerie, it's at Target, it's at all these different things. Everybody knows a t-shirt bra? Great. Usually, those are cut in the exact same way with the exact same mold. Not everybody's boobs are going to fit that shape. Not everybody's boobs are going to fit that mold. So we need to sometimes look at things that are going to be a little bit more flexible or a little bit more, made to fit different boob types. So, has anyone ever heard of a balconette bra? Yeah, great. So that is a really kind of solid one that is a really good kind of breakaway from that full coverage molded shape. Let me see. Pass this around. So this is a balconette. So you can kind of see, maybe compare it to a t-shirt bra that or your bra. Typically it is defined by having a shorter apex. So again, that's where the strap meets the cup. So if your t-shirt bra like comes up here and you're like, I've got so much space right here, that might be a good way to just eliminate the space entirely by bringing it a little bit further down and making sure it's not going past where your breast stops. Then we have ones called plunges, which, as the name suggests, are pretty plunging. They have a low gore in the front, and that helps if you maybe have some side tissue, if you're really trying to get some cleavage towards the front. And what helps is we've now tightened the apex and brought it up a little bit so that everything is going to sit flush to your skin and not have that gaping that t-shirt bras do. Here you go. I've tried to do the same ones that are in these photos. That's how I am. Anyways, then we have your t-shirt bra. And then we have something called a cut and sew bra. A cut and sew bra is typically just something that, again, instead of it being molded like this with this predetermined shape, it has literally been cut into pieces and sewn together. And that can, again, help with a little bit more of that flexibility. Maybe it's a slight kind of stretchier lace. And that way that you're getting something that's a little bit more fitted to your breast instead of something that is going to maintain the shape no matter who wears the bra. We can pass that around too for funsies. Couple other kinds, full coverage bras are going to be very full coverage. Maybe what we think of that, like that kind of grandma bra where you don't get any cleavage, you don't get any kind of like, showing through. It's going to be full coverage in the cup, full coverage in the gore, nothing showing through. Push-up bras are something that is designed to increase the visual look of your bust. Maybe that is giving you a little bit more direction or a little more depth to the cup to increase that cleavage. That's what those are intended for. Anyone heard of minimizers? Okay. Another kind of popular one does the opposite of a push-up. What it does is, instead of giving you like a lot of projection like some bras do, is it actually kind of pushes your tissue a little bit more out towards your arms and flattens it a little bit. Usually no more than like an inch or inch and a half, but it might be helpful if you are wearing a button down, and we get that little kind of gape when you wear a button down. But if you are not in love with kind of like a big projected look, a minimizer can help with that. Then there's front closure ones, which usually are just a lot of these similar types. They just have a closure instead of a gore there. That's sometimes a little bit more of an accessible option. Yeah, I can take all of it. From lots of different, we can kind of go over some resources at the end, yeah, because there's lots of different places for this. So now you might be thinking, Madison, all that's well and good, but what about like sports bras and strapless bras? Those can work too. You can buy strapless bras and wireless bras and sports bras that are bra sized, because sometimes we play that fun game of, do I need to get a medium to fit around me? Do I need to get a large to fit my boobs? Do I want it to be a little loose, but I want to be able to breathe? And that's not what we want to be able to do. You're welcome to just toss it up there. That's absolutely fine. So that is something that a lot of these bra brands understand a little bit more, is that it is harder if you have, maybe a bigger cup size, or maybe you have a larger band and a smaller bust, these sizes that are not necessarily catered to at the mall. This is going to help give you a couple more options that are going to support you without feeling compressive. So yes, sports bras exist in bra sizing. Wireless bras exist in bra sizing. There is inherently a little bit of a difference because of the structure of a wire versus a wireless bra in how much lift we can achieve. But again, usually with a bra sized wireless, we're seeing the two big components, which is a firmer band around your body and enough depth in the cup to hold you, which can help give you that lift and that comfort without feeling, again, maybe like you are spilling out of it, or like it's going to start creeping up your back. And then strapless bras, I tell people that strapless bras don't have to be your cup of tea. Even in the right size, they can be a little bit daunting. But again, like I mentioned earlier, in a well-fitting bra, straps should almost be superfluous. So if we are in the right size, we're in the right shape, we have that balance. The band should stay in the front or in the back, and the cup should stay upright. We're not having too big of a band where it's going to start creeping down your body and your boobs are pushing it down. So it can work, it can exist, but they don't have to be something that you wear if you do not feel comfortable wearing it. So then we have, like I said, we have some breast types. So like I said, two people could walk into a store, need the exact same size, need completely different bras for maybe their goals or for their tissue. Depending on who you ask, like there's like anywhere between like 6 and 17 breast labels. I think it gets pedantic a little bit, but there's a couple different ones just to give you, again, a little bit of a more idea of, oh, these might be my boobs. You don't have to identify with any of these labels. You don't have to claim them. But I think, again, we're taught in society that boobs have to be full and they have to be perky, and things that sagging is bad. And I have had so many clients tell me, I'm so sorry that my boobs are so weird. I have never in my life seen a weird pair of boobs. And if this gives you a better idea of like, oh, hey, those are my boobs, perfect. So I've kind of separated them into 3 little groups. One is going to be bottom heavy. This, I would say, is like 80% of people. Again, that super full, like perky look with the nipples facing forward is not something that is always going to be naturally achieved. A lot of people tend to carry most of their breast tissue in the lower half of their breasts. So, and maybe that is like kind of a drop and then a lot of fullness. Maybe that's kind of a little bit more of like flatter and it's kind of just even all the way down. Again, absolutely normal. What happens though with a lot of bottom heavy breasts is that things like t-shirt bras aren't necessarily made for them, because again, now that we've got everything lifted, if we don't have a lot of breast tissue here, now we're left with that gaping. Now we're left with a lot of that space that we just don't fill out, even if the bra is technically the right size. So things like with a shorter apex, like a balconette, like a cut and sew, just something that is going to be, again, a little bit more adept at holding all of you, is going to maybe be a better course of action there. Separated breasts, we sometimes see in a couple different ways. If maybe you have more than 3 or 4 inches of space between your breasts, so sometimes you can run into the issue of, things are always kind of hitting you on the side because it's not quite wide enough, or maybe your nipples point in 2 different directions. And so again, maybe you're trying to get a little bit more focused on, maybe you don't necessarily want a whole lot of lift. Maybe we want more kind of center cleavage. So a couple different kind of needs there. But if you are finding that like maybe things are uncomfortable in the front because you have a lot of space, you are not alone in that regard. Then we have some like that I kind of call close set or full. We have one that is kind of called athletic, where the breast tissue is a little bit more concentrated around the pectoral muscles, might not be super projected, kind of a little bit higher on the chest. Then there's round, which again is that very full, evenly full on the top and the bottom. I've seen it happen. Not the most common thing. But then we also have some that are called conical, which is a little bit of the opposite of bottom heavy, in that you have most of your tissue on the top, and then you kind of like my shape right now, it kind of goes up on the bottom. All of these are normal. all of these are going to be something that, like, honestly, I bet if like all of us took our shirts off right now, we'd probably all have different boob types. So absolutely. We won't do that though. Now you might be thinking, Madison, but my boobs are different sizes. Also super, super, super common. A lot of people tend to have usually a half an inch to an inch of difference between their breasts. I've heard for multiple reasons. I've heard that your non-dominant side can be bigger because we use this muscle more. I've heard that your left one's bigger because it's closer to your heart. It's just your bodies. If you do have, that kind of difference and maybe you find more gaping on the smaller side, we typically tend to suggest to size for the larger. That way you are not getting discomfort again with wires or spilling out of that one. But it is up to you. There's lots of ways if you ever need to kind of pad out the smaller one if that's something that you're comfortable with. If you do have quite a large amount of difference, there is kind of a little bit of that compromise that we might find there to make sure again that you are feeling comfortable. Maybe that means just that the gore is not going to tack, but whatever you are kind of comfortable with there. We're going to troubleshoot a little bit like for AMAB bodies, because we tend to find that, again, bras, especially the ones from the mall, are made with the exact same shape in mind for every single size. And that doesn't fit a lot of people in general. But as we look to kind of fitting people with AMAB bodies, it gets a little bit harder because the tissue can be concentrated in a different way. If you are at a certain point in like your transition where you're taking hormones, things can start projecting or maybe they don't. And it's a little harder to kind of take those measurements and immediately go and get that size because there's other things that we need to kind of look out there. So like I said, I've kind of got some things up here. These are some kind of terms we don't necessarily have to go into, but our breast tissue is kind of like a tree. It has roots on our body. Some people have tall roots, meaning that their breast tissue goes all the way up to the top. Some people have very narrow roots. And so what we're looking for when we have a wire on our body is to make sure that the wire is going to fit where your roots stop. So with AMAB bodies, like I said, sometimes the tissue can be a little bit more concentrated around the pectoral muscles, and it doesn't go out maybe as far or it goes out farther than traditional wires. But then at the same time, we maybe don't have as much projection on somebody with an AFAB body. So if we get that wire big enough, the cups might be too deep. So we run into those issues. This is just kind of an example, like I said, of that projection, and then the roots. So we have like narrow, average, and wide. So we're looking to kind of fit a combination of factors that, again, a lot of bra makers don't necessarily take into account. So what do? We look at a couple different styles. There are a couple brands that are specifically made for femme people, for male to female transitioners, but it is, again, up to you. We can find a bra for the most part that fits. It might just take a little bit of a more trial and error to make sure what is going to be comfortable for you and affirming for you. So this is non-binary burlesque dancer Jake Dupree. I like to use them for a lot of these because all they post is lingerie. You can see, maybe not, but in the balconette, we have a wire that's wide enough, but the cups are too deep. So it's actually coming off of their bodies. Versus in maybe something like a plunge, where now we have the wire is wide enough, but we've brought the cup up a little bit more. We've made it a little bit more shallow, so it's going to stay flush to their skin. This is another trans woman. This is Posh Girl Jada. So this is another plunge that she is in. And so again, you can see we brought everything up instead of making it shorter and like fuller, because that's not necessarily what we're always fitting for. A lot of brands, to kind of have this more inclusive option, opt for triangle bralettes, because that is going to be like the easiest way we can adjust for having the wide space at the bottom, but not having it be so deep. So that's what she has got on. Like I said, that's a very kind of common shape. That's what a lot of, you're easy to find in TJ Maxx and at Aerie and things like that. But introducing that wire is, like I said, where we can get a little bit more finicky. But my usual advice for AMAB bodies is to avoid fuller coverage t-shirt bras to start with, and just kind of determine like what wire is going to be most comfortable for you, if that's something that you want to wear. And if anyone has more questions, we can ask that later. I also, like I said, put a couple like a femme specific brands up there who predominantly make things like this. But if you want more resources, just let me know. taking care of your bras, because a big thing that goes into the lifespan of your bra is how well you take care of them. Kind of like shoes. If you wear the same pair of shoes every single day for 12 hours a day, they are probably not going to last super, super long. But if we are looking at, a couple different ways we can take care of our bras and our shoes, we can make sure that they are going to last. There's been this kind of rumor on TikTok over the last couple of months that bras are only supposed to last 6 months. That's not true. That would be so expensive. And I'm here to tell you that is not the case. Bras in general should have a lifespan of at least 18 months. We measure that lifespan because if you are wearing it consistently, if you are having like a good time with it, after about 6 months of wear, you probably are going to move into the middle set of hooks. After another 6 months of wear, you might move into the tightest set of hooks. And then only when the bra stops fitting do we say that the bra is no longer serving you or that the bra has reached the end of its life. But if you are just like, oh yeah, it's been a year, I guess time to throw away my bra. Don't do that. I'm sure it's still a perfectly good bra. So here's a couple of ways that we can kind of again make sure everything is going to stay the way that we want it to. When putting on your bra, whatever way you are physically capable of putting on a bra is the best way to put on a bra. But maybe there's a couple of things that if you didn't know, we can adjust to make it a little bit better. Does anyone here clasp behind your back? Do you put it on like this? No? Yes? Okay, great. I learned to do this when I was 9 and I started wearing bras, and I think that's just the muscle memory. But if you're maybe in a fitting room with an independent fitter, this might be how they help you put it on, because what this does is allows you to kind of make adjustments that we need to make without putting strain on the bra itself. Are we claspers? Are we front claspers here? Yeah. That's okay too. That is okay too. But here are a couple tips again, if that is the way that you do it, to make sure that you're not hurting your bra. And like in this photos, we don't want to start with the cup upside down. If that is something that you want to do, make sure that the cups are already flipped up, and you want to try and hook it kind of as close to where it is naturally going to sit as possible. If you are trying to hook it around your tummy and your tummy is a little bit bigger than your band, the band is not meant to fit your tummy. The band is meant to fit right here. The band is not meant to go over your head while it is clasped. That's not the measurement it's meant for. It is meant for this measurement. So if we do that, and then we just turn that around again with the cups up, you're just going to bring that wire underneath your breasts and you're going to put your straps on, and that should be good. The flipping of the wire is one of the reasons that you might find your strap or your wires might break in half, because we're putting strain on it that the strain shouldn't be there. Like I said, please don't put it on like a shirt unless that's the only way to do it. If it's something that does not have hook and eyes, like a sports bra or a wireless bra, go crazy. And then once we have it on, whatever way you put your bra on, you want to, again, kind of like I just did, shimmy your wires up a little bit. We don't want them sitting on your stomach. They should stop when they hit your breasts. And then you're just going to kind of gather your breast tissue from the side, kind of bring it forward a little bit, make sure that the wire is sitting where we want it to. Adjust your straps if you need to adjust your straps. And then hopefully once you've done that, you don't have to do it the rest of the day. After you sit up or after you stand, you don't need to do this, or you don't have to run to the Kroger bathroom and put your straps up. Whatever ends up, you should be able to kind of maintain this fit throughout the day in the right size. Then for other sorts of things like bra hygiene, please don't put your bras in the dryer. I will appear in your laundry room and bonk you on the head. But the biggest things that are the enemies for bras are heat and tumbling. That is usually a dryer. If you are somebody that maybe you have been putting things in the dryer or even the washing machine and your wires regularly pop out or your wires regularly snap in half, usually again because that strain on the bra that we are not meant to put on the bra. If you hand wash, I preach the word of hand washing. That does not have to be that you are outside with the suds and bucket. It usually just means you can take a little bit of gentle detergent, even like a Dove bar of soap, rub that over the bra and let it soak in some lukewarm or cold water. all we're trying to do is remove some of the dirts and oils that are not from our body that have made their way to the bra. It does not need something super intensive. If you do put it in the washing machine, don't tell me, but you can put it on a gentle cycle, a hand wash cycle. I recommend sometimes maybe throwing in some towels or some sheets with it, again, to make sure it's not hitting up against the drum or anything, and on a cold cycle as well. Yeah. Okay. So that kind of brings us to the end of the main thing that I had to talk about. So now it's time to answer any questions. We can go over any kind of other resources that you might be looking for. But anyone have any questions off the jump? Yeah, absolutely. So let's see. Hello. So I can pull up a couple of those. There are a lot of brands that luckily make these bra sizes. So my wallpaper. Pay no attention to my video game floorboard. Oh, let me get on the internet real quick. To answer that question, I'll kind of do this while I'm on the internet. So, there are lots of brands, predominantly brands that are made outside of the United States. For some reason, the United Kingdom has a really good handle on going over a G cup. So we can look at a couple of these. And I have a QR code that I can put out too that has a lot of like these resources that I've already kind of listed for you. But there are brands that are some that are called like Alomi, some that are called Panache that will regularly go up to a like a USO cup. So about 12 sizes larger than what is usually available at these stores. There are websites called Bare Necessities. I'm trying to just kind of pull this up real quick. Yes, I think. Let me see. That probably would help. If you want to come put it in, you can. Zora Neale Hurston. A L E. E. Okay. Okay. There's a paper on her one. I'm like, trying to remember how to spell her name. Okay. Perfect. Let's do this. Alomi, Panache. Let's do this. So, shop all bras. Doesn't want to. Let me do this. Let me write this down. How about that? Perfect. Okay. So these are the three main websites I typically tend to recommend because they are not going to carry like only one specific brand. They are going to carry a lot of these brands again that are much more inclusive, especially in terms of like cup and band sizing. I believe Bare Necessities carries up to like a 54 band. I believe the same with Her Room. Bravissimo is the only one that is of these three that is not US based. It is based out of the UK. I believe at the moment, though, they are covering tariffs, but they have the largest cup size range. They go up to what is a US Q cup. But these are some really good places, again, that are going to have options that, and I think the other thing too is we might think that, like an M cup, that must be like $200. No, a lot of these brands, again, kind of understand that these are investments and we want them to last. So these brands are typically going to be between like 48 to $70. And they are going to have, not in addition to the basic bras, they're going to have the sports bras, the strapless bras, bra sized swimwear, really extensive swimwear. Again, if you're playing that game of I need a 2XL just to kind of fit my boobs and now it's hanging off of my back, we don't have to deal with that with a lot of these brands that kind of understand a little bit more. So if you are kind of finding that with a fitting or with your sizing that you are kind of a little bit sized out of traditional American brands, I really recommend looking into these because, like I said, the UK brands have them on lock. I almost exclusively wear a brand called Panache, Panach. And that is a really good one that is going to be able to fit. In my opinion, it fits very well. It has the options again of like basic t-shirt bras that are a little bit more cut to you. For sports bras, they're really good, and for like cut and sew and plunges and things like that. So these are kind of my three favorite resources. Of course. And like I said, I have like a QR code, and then on the card that you got, that takes you directly to a website that I have made that breaks all of this down for you. Yeah. Any other? Yes. 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 So sister sizing is a method of sizing, a method of kind of adjusting to the fit that involves finding another size bra that is going to fit your cups and encapsulate your cups and maybe is a little bit of a different size. So let me pull up a chart and let me add this to that so that we can. Because one of the big things about bra cup sizing is that a D cup, let's say, for example, a D cup, is not the same on every body because, again, it's just that measurement of usually about 4 inches of difference between your band and your bust. On somebody who is like a 30 band, that difference is not going to be very like pronounced because it is usually maybe somebody who's like a little bit more petite. 4 inches of difference on a 30 band is not, again, going to look like Mondo Gazungas that society has told us D cups are. On like a 42 band, there's definitely going to be obviously a little bit more tissue because we're on a 42 band, we're on somebody with more surface area. So when we look across bra sizes, we can actually find bra sizes that are going to hold the same amount of tissue across different bands. So, like, for example, if somebody is, let's say, a 30D, they could, in theory, also wear a 38 AA. That's not going to fit them the same way. But if we hold those two cups next to each other, they actually might be about that same size. But where this kind of comes into like a little bit more of like practicality, or where you might use this, is kind of like with any other kind of piece of clothing. Maybe you get something and you're like, yes, this is my normal size, but for some reason, this band is really, really tight. But the cups are fitting you as they should. So that you, instead of, let's say, we'll take me for example, I'm a 34G. So instead of me being like, this 34G is not fitting, I'm going to go up to a 36G. That's not what we want to do, because in addition to going up in the band, by going up in the cup, by sticking with that cup size, I'm actually introducing more room in the cup, and that is going to overall be too loose. So I want to look at what is going to be the equivalent of my cup size on a 36 band. So that if a 36 banded person had those measurements, they, as let's say a 36 banded person went from a 36 band to a 42-inch bust, that gives them a triple D or an F cup or an F cup. But I'm a little bit smaller in the band, but we have the same amount of space. So that would mean I need to go up in the band to a 36 band, but I technically need to go down in the cup to an F cup to make sure I have, again, that balance, that ratio that is for me. Same sort of thing if maybe I get a 34G and I'm like, dang, this band is way too loose, but I love the fit of the cups. If I go down to a 32G, now those cups are going to be too small. But if I've gone down to a 32H, we've tightened that band and we've made sure that there is still going to be enough room for me in those cups. I'll tip that down too for the online people. This I know is a little bit funky and a little bit confusing, and that's why I tell people too that like I said, with the shoes or with jeans or anything, if you're able to kind of identify how you want a bra to feel on your body, what you want it to be, the size is not necessarily going to be the end all be all. That doesn't mean that maybe you fit into every single 34G, but it gives you an understanding of what is off about this and how do I adjust for that. So if you are like, maybe I'm a 34G, but you go try something on and it's like a 32I and you're like, this fits perfectly, fantastic. You know, like I said, I've got shoes in my closet from 7.5 to 9.5. Like I said, I know this is funky, but any other questions about sister sizing while I have this up?
make sure I have the right point.
Yeah.
If I were to adjust one, let's say I had a 38 deep, I would just say, okay, let's wait a couple still.
Yes.
But the band's too tight, so I would go down to, I would go.
Yes. So you would go to a 40C. So whatever you go down in, you go up in the other thing. So if you're going up in the band, you go down in the cup. If you're going down in the cup, you're going up in the band. So yeah, whatever, it's one or the other. It's never like, you would probably not go from a 38C to a 40C is the thing. You want to make sure you have that adjustment. Yeah. Any other questions about sister syllable? Great. Any other questions in general? Yes. Yeah.
Thing I like, have nothing else going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nothing that I can tell is wrong.
Yeah.
Does that mean that I'm wearing the wrong side? Or could it be a compliment?
Yeah, I'm not a doctor. This is not. Yeah, this is not medical advice. That's my legal apropos. Very common, yes, because again, what we're looking for is that balance, and that's not to say that like a well-fitting bra is going to remove all of that, but when we have big boobs, they are they are on our body and they are a weight, and so yes, if you are kind of feeling that. That is something that I have seen in the past has helped clients by usually getting into probably a firmer band and a cup that is going to stay upright a little bit more. I can't guarantee anything, but that is a big thing that we see. Like I used to help out a like chiropractic office with like people who were looking into getting reductions. We'd kind of size them beforehand so that we knew what we were starting with. And a lot of people would like kind of put that bra on that actually felt well. And they were like, wow, if I had kind of known about this, or if I, wasn't already in this process, maybe I wouldn't be looking at this like so begrudgingly, or, like maybe I would actually have something to feel a little bit better in, a little bit physically and emotionally as well. Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah. Of course. Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I, as a fitter, tend to suggest kind of just checking every 6 months or so. And again, that's where the tape measure, that's where kind of doing that yourself can kind of be a good place, again, for you to know like if your measurements have changed into what regard, because you're right, like I might wake up tomorrow and be like, these 34s are too tight. Every 6 months, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to go somewhere and buy a new bra every 6 months, but familiarizing yourself with your measurements and again what feels good, that's kind of a good place to just kind of check in. And then again, if you also just notice the bra not fitting anymore, we're seeing a lot like with kind of the rise of weight loss drugs, kind of that rapid kind of weight loss. So if you are in a brand new bra feeling after like, for whatever reason, not necessarily weight loss drugs, but like if you are feeling after like 4 months, you're like, dang, I'm already on like the middle or the tightest hook, but I still like this bra, maybe you are like in a place where you need to be like, let me kind of resize this, let me kind of check things there. One thing I will say in regards to our bodies changing is that it is very easy to alter bras, because that is something that you can kind of do yourself, or a seamstress, your local tailor, and that is going to be like a little 5-minute fix from you or a 15-minute fix from a tailor, because we don't necessarily want to be buying $65 bras every couple of months. So like I said, very easy for you or a seamstress, especially the bands of the bras. If you are feeling again like the band is just feeling a little too loose, it's not doing what you want it to, but the rest of it fits very well, it's very easy to just tack down and take in the band of it. So to take it down from maybe a 36 to a 34, that sort of thing. The most I have ever taken a bra down for, we used to do this at where I worked, we would do this for clients, was from a 38 to a 30. But then at that point, it kind of gets into the question of like, do we need to move the straps? Where is that going to sit comfortably? With any kind of piece of clothing, there is so much that you can kind of do. It is harder unless you have the background in lingerie construction to alter down the cups. But that is an easy, like I said, kind of an easy quick fix if you are just like, man, I really like this bra, I'm not quite ready to let go of it yet. That will just bring you back down to maybe a better fitting band. Very easy again if maybe like your hooks ever fall out, very easy for you again or a seamstress to kind of put that back in. If the wire pops out, which can happen, that's not necessarily always an indicator that something is like wrong with like the size of the bra. Sometimes there is just like quality or, wear and tear, very easy to just kind of like tack that in there. Harder to replace the wire if it breaks in half, but that is also something to keep in mind because we want to be economical with our investments as well. Yeah. Yes. I'm sorry. Oh, yes. You go ahead. I saw you raise your hand a minute ago too. Mm-hmm. It's so individual, kind of, unfortunately. Have you ever heard of the bra that fits calculator? Okay. Yeah. And so they have that option there, but again, like same sort of way with like calculator and measurements, it's not always like correct or the end all be all. The biggest thing is just again kind of making sure like if you need when I say like it's always not easiest to like alter cups down. If you end up kind of finding like a wire that fits very well, but it is just maybe a little bit too projected in the cup, with something like either a triangle or a plunge, it's easier to take this down because usually you can take it in from the center and kind of bring that a little bit closer to your body. Some other bras you can't necessarily do that, but that is something that can be done with plunges. But it unfortunately, like with everybody, it's I can't make a broad like suggestion because everybody's body is a little bit different there. Yeah. 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 Mm-hmm.
I'm somewhere in between 40A,
sure,
40C.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Right.
And they like this is a lot.
Sure.
And like
the
and I can find like if I want to find a 40D.
Yes. Yes. It's the larger band. It's the kind of the over 38 bands, and you're right, the under the D cups that are harder. So that is. Let me kind of. If it doesn't want to project the internet, I'll pull up a screenshot of this. Again, there are brands that do this. So and that is another kind of one that I have kind of collected for the bra resource guide that I have. So let me pull up a couple of these, and I'll just do this. So this is a screenshot from my Notion page, which I call the bra resource guide, where I've kind of done all this classification for you. So there are brands that do this kind of specifically. There's brands called like Leading Women and Leading Lady, who that is kind of their specialty, is over like 36 bands, with every band size usually having an A or a double A. Pretty kind of solid size range there too. Couple other brands, particularly like the French brands, also do that. Those are obviously like a little bit more. You might have to dig for those. Louisa Brock and Prima Donna. There are other brands again that are typically wireless ones. So if you're after a wire, I would look into like either Leading Lady or Little Women. No, not that one. Sorry, I was just thinking myself. But yeah, so they do exist, and like I said, it is a little bit harder to find, especially if the sister sizes are not working. But these are some of the ones that I have listed there. Yeah, and like I said, for those kinds of styles, it can be a little bit easier to take the cups in if need be. Yeah, and then what was your question? Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. And it's hard to, this is a solid question because it's hard to know, especially like if you don't have like, I was very lucky in addition to being in lingerie for 10 years. When I was 10 years old and my boobs popped out, my mom took me to a bra fitting salon and it was like, okay, perfect. So it's hard to know if you don't have that foundation of this is what you want a bra to feel like to navigate that for sure. So typically like if sizes are feeling a little bit off, or maybe a certain size feels good in some regards and not others. Maybe again, like wire's fitting pretty good, but maybe there's just too much kind of cup overall. We can kind of start looking at other shapes. Maybe some brands, and they're starting to do this a little bit more in kind of the bra description, we'll kind of go over like maybe who is this good for. So maybe you're finding that if the wire is fitting well, maybe the cups are too projected, or vice versa. Maybe the cups are always too projected and the wire is too narrow. So there are some brands, I'll pull up again a little screenshot of that, that have kind of, again, that understanding of we need to make sure people know who this bra can work for and who it could not work for. So this is from a brand called Understance, who is Canadian, and I'll throw this up here too. And on what I really like about that is that every single bra that they have, it looks like this. Let me see. So it'll go over, do this, and then pull that down. There we go. Who this bra is great for. This bra is great for like lower cut tops. It is not great for wide roots, for example, or maybe when it says not great for like super projected. So it is a little bit of that trial and error, unfortunately. Oh no. But if there's something that like you're kind of consistently experiencing, and if you like want to ask me that, I can maybe help with that like in a little bit more individual regard. Yeah. Yes. Yes, absolutely. If you are somebody that you do feel like you experience quite a significant change throughout the month, which some people do. I have a friend that goes up 2 cup sizes every period. It's wild. So obviously, like that is something that you can look into. Like if you are like, for a week out of the month, things are too small. If you want to kind of fit for something around your period to make sure that it is going to fit at that time, you can do that. There's not necessarily like one specific, like for some people that it just doesn't happen, but you could take it a couple weeks beforehand, like maybe during your period as well, and then that way that can give you an idea of what kind of shift there is, and maybe if you want to get something that maybe is a little bit more flexible with the sizing. Usually, like again, the 2 cups difference is an outlier, but with something like this, that has stretch to the lace and that has a little bit there, usually this can encapsulate you for the whole of the month. But if you are finding again that significant difference after the couple of weeks, it doesn't hurt to have something that maybe you throw a band extender on with this just to give yourself a little bit more room, or maybe you have 2 different size bras for the month. But you could try both if you wanted to. Yeah. Any more questions? Any online questions? Amazing. Okay. That means I guess I'm doing my job. Yeah, like I said, any kind of other ones. We can chat afterwards. We can come look at the bras. And then I also have I'll put it up here. I'll just type it. A discount code for my virtual fittings. If y'all are mostly Atlanta based, in 2026, I might have a what's it called? A in-person salon again, where we can kind of do in-person fittings, which should be really good. So on the card that y'all got in your bags, that website, that QR code will take you to where I offer virtual fittings, and this will take the cost down to $50. So it's a 20% off coupon. You can just put that in there. This works all the time. So that way we can kind of chat about needs. What happens in a virtual fitting workshop or a virtual fitting is kind of a lot of this. We talk about your past experiences wearing bras. If there has ever been, something specific that you have really kind of struggled with about bras, I will like ask to just have a look at you without a shirt on in a bra so that we can assess like the fit of your current bra. And then after the fitting, I send you a like personalized shopping list. So you're not kind of left high and dry with just the size and some advice. It actually kind of gives you like a starting point of places where you can actually like look into different options and everything. So that is what I do. Probably would be similar if I do it in person next year, but you could actually try the bras on. So that's a bonus. So any other? Yes. Uh-huh. Yes. Mm-hmm. 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 Yes. Okay. Sure. Yeah. I will say that kind of a lot of these other brands that like once we kind of get out of, and like I said, there's nothing inherently wrong with the mall brands, but a lot of these brands do kind of understand that. I mean, you can kind of see this. We have a pretty kind of wider band on something like that. A lot of times once we get past like a G cup with most brands, we increase from that 2 to a 3 to maybe even a 4 band bra. So it can be uncomfortable for sure, when you're wearing something tighter and it just like doesn't feel good with how everything's distributed around you. But there are lots of other options out there that are going to have that kind of wider band to give you a little bit more comfort there. It changes for every brand, unfortunately. A lot of these brands that like for the websites I recommended tends to start around a G cup is when they get thicker. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Amazing. Well, like I said, thank you all so much for coming out and braving the cold and Atlanta in general. And I will hang around a little bit. If you did not get a gift bag, let me know or take one off a seat. But yeah, I'm so excited that y'all are here, browse around, finding some books and everything. But thank you all so much.
Thank you so much.